Hello, I'm John Coleman from ApocatastasisInstitute, an institute for the humanities and alternative college and high school here on New Milford, Connecticut, USA. The purpose of this broadcast is to get the poem Lepanto by G.K. Chesterton under our belt for this week. This is part of an ongoing telephonic series, Poetry at Apoc, and it features the various selections from our project, which is our 3-year synopsis of human life on this planet using various readings. It's a marvelous presentation. It has various ways that you may join yourself to this work to learn for yourself the whole sweep and panoply of human life on the earth. The easiest way, and maybe the introductory way, is just to download our provisional volume 1 from our website and start reading. We also do weekly broadcast focus on the historical time that we're looking at. However, part of the 3-year cycle of the project is a monthly cursus where the poetry is recycled, although that's not a totally accurate term. You can never recycle poetry. Every reading is a new insight. But whilst the full journey is 3 years, we every month go through the same 260 odd selections of poetry, including today's focus, which is Lepanto. Now, this poem was written in 1911 and published in 1915 in the midst of the Great War. And there is so much going on here. So, by way of theme, Chesterton has chosen a battle between the Holy League, somewhat vaguely led by Spain under the Habsburgs, and Philip II, the son of Charles V. I say somewhat led. So it was actually the bastard son of the bastard grandson of Charles V, the bastard son of Philip II of Spain, Don Juan of Romantic fame. Don Juan is actually, along with the Holy League, responsible for heading up the Christian aspect of this, and his flotilla is going to confront in this battle the Ottoman Turks. You have to understand, and there is so much to say about the poem Lepanto and the battle, that I just want to bring up a few nuggets. But the first thing you need to understand about this conflict is that the power dynamic is extremely favorable of the Ottomans. In 1492, as you know, Columbus sails the ocean blue. That same year, because it's the end of the Reconquista, the Spanish boot out the rabbinic Jews from Spain. For various reasons that don't concern this broadcast, but a lot of those Jews go to the Ottoman Empire and are fixing for revenge. And so very shortly after, as is the case of Lepanto, you find Jews leading whole armadas to get revenge on the Spanish. And the Spanish, I hemmed and hawed, if you noticed my initial words, led by Spain, so-called led by the Holy League. The fact is that not only are the Christian Europeans outnumbered greatly in this battle, a battle which takes place in the Gulf of Corinth, incidentally, like the city of Corinth, the Epistle to the Corinthians, right? This is the Gulf of Corinth. It's very much hemmed in on either side. Not only is there a discrepancy in numbers, but also the Christian Europeans, because it is the midst of the Reformation, are very much concerned with their own internal struggles. And very few Christians realize the gravity of the Ottoman threat. They're too busy, the Catholics pissing on the Protestants and the Protestants pissing on the Catholics, to realize that they're about, both of them, to be destroyed. And so there is this aspect that very few people can see what's going on and the threat and the gravity of the threat that's facing Christian Europe. And again, there is so much to say about this poem, and it is a long poem, so I don't want to belabor the point. I just will say one of the things, Chesterton is our author, one of the things Chesterton loves is paradox. He loves the concept of the burning bush How can a bush be on fire and not be consumed? He loves the how do you say, the paradox of the virgin will be with child, which seems to be a contradiction, but is not. He loves the paradox of the suffering Messiah, the suffering Christ. How can the Savior be humiliated, and so forth and so forth. If you know anything of Chesterton's many writings, he's very much tickled and more than tickled with the idea of paradox. So when it comes to the Battle of Lepanto, Chesterton, our author, written this poem in 1911, published in 1915, is moved by that. How is it that the bastard playboy son of the playboy Philip the Second, how is it that the Spanish Habsburg cast-off can be the hero of Christendom? Right. Finally, by roundabout way, this battle, which takes place on the 7th of October, this very day of recording and broadcast, this battle, of course, enters into the Latin Rite liturgy as the Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary, for reasons Chesterton will bring to our attention here. There is so much going on in this poem, and I would encourage you to consult many worthy commentaries. But without further ado, we have Lepanto, Gilbert Keith Chesterton, 1911, written, published in the midst of the Great War, 1915. White fonts falling in the courts of the sun, and the Soldan of Byzantium is smiling as they run. There is laughter like the fountain in that face that all men feared. It stirs the forest darkness, the darkness of his beard. It curls the blood-red crescent, the crescent of his lips, for the inmost sea of all the earth is shaken with his ships. They have dared the white republics up the capes of Italy. They have dashed the Adriatic round the lion of the sea. And Pope has cast his arms abroad for agony and loss, and called the kings for Christendom for swords about the cross. The cold Queen of England is looking in the glass, and the shadow of the Valois is yawning at the mass. From evening isles fantastical rings faint the Spanish gun, and the Lord upon the golden horn is laughing in the sun. Dim drums throbbing in the hills half heard, where only on a nameless throne a crownless prince has stirred, or risen from a doubtful seat in half a tainted stall. The last knight of Europe takes his weapons from the wall, the last and lingering troubadour to whom the bird has sung, when once went singing southward when all the world was young. In that enormous silence, tiny and unafraid, comes up along the winding road the noise of the crusade. Strong gongs groaning and the guns boom far. Don Juan of Austria is going to the war. Stiff flags straining in the night blast cold, in the gloom black purple and the glint old gold. Torchlight crimson on the copper kettle drums. Then the trumpets, then the trumpet, then the cannon, and he comes. Don Juan is laughing in the brave beard curled, spurning of his stirrups like the thrones of all the world. Holding his head up for a flag of all the free, love light of Spain, hurrah! Death light of Africa, Don Juan of Austria is riding to the sea. The hound is in his paradise above the evening star. Don Juan of Austria is going to the war. He moves his mighty turban on the timeless Houri's knees, his turban that is woven of the sunset and the seas. He shakes the peacock gardens as he rises from his ease and strides among the treetops and is taller than the trees. And his voice through all the garden is a thunder sent to bring Black Azrael and Ariel and Ammon on the wing. Giants and genii, multiplex of wing and eye, whose strong obedience broke the sky when Solomon was king. They rush in red and purple from the red clouds of the morn, for the temples where the yellow god shut up their eyes in scorn. They rise in green robes roaring from the green hells of the sea, where fallen skies and evil hues and eyeless creatures be. On them the sea valves cluster, and the gray sea forests curl, splash with the splendid sickness, the sickness of the pearl. They swell in sapphire smoke out of the blue cracks of the ground. They gather and they wonder and give worship to Mahound. And he saith, break up the mountains where the hermit folk can hide, and sift the red and silver sands, lest bone of Sate abide, and chase the Giaours flying night and day, not giving rest, for that which was our trouble comes again out of the west. We have set the seal of Solomon on all things under sun, of knowledge and of sorrow and endurance of things done. But a noise is in the mountains, and I know the voice that shook our palaces 400 years ago. It is he that saith not Kismet, it is he that knows not fate. It is Richard, it is Raymond, it is Godfrey at the gate. It is he whose loss is laughter when he counts the wager's worth. Put down your feet upon him, that our peace may be on the earth. For he heard the drums groaning, and he heard the guns jar. Don Juan of Austria is going to the war. Sudden still, hurrah! Bolt from Iberia. Don Juan of Austria is gone by Alcalar. St. Michael's on his mountain, in the sea roads of the north. Don Juan of Austria is girt and going forth. Where the grey seas glitter and the sharp tide shift, and the sea folk labor and the red sails lift. He shakes his lance of iron, and he claps his wings of stone. The noise has gone through Normandy. The noise has gone alone. The north is full of tangled things and texts and aching eyes, and dead is all the innocence of anger and surprise. And Christian killeth Christian in a narrow, dusty room, and Christian dreadeth Christ that hath a newer face of doom. And Christian hateth Mary that kissed God and got at E, but Don Juan of Austria is riding to the sea. Don Juan calling through the blast and the eclipse, crying with the trumpet of his lips. Trumpet that saith, Ha, Domino Gloria. Don Juan of Austria is shouting to the ships. King Philip's in his closet with the fleece about his neck. Don Juan of Austria is armed upon the deck. The walls are hung with velvet that is black and soft as sin, and little dwarfs creep out of it, and little dwarfs creep in. He holds the crystal vial that has colors like the moon. He touches, and it tingles, and he trembles very soon. And his face is as a fungus, of a leprous white and gray, like plants in the high houses that are shuttered from the day. And death is in the vial and the end of noble work, but Don Juan of Austria is fired upon the Turk. Don Juan's hunting, and his hounds have bayed. Booms away past Italy the rumor of his raid. Gun upon gun, ha! Gun upon gun, hurrah! Don Juan of Austria has loosed the cannonade. The Pope was in his chapel before day or battle broke. Don Juan of Austria is hidden in the smoke. The hidden room in man's house where God sits all the year. The secret window whence the world looks small and very dear. He sees as in a mirror on the monstrous twilight sea the crescent of his cruel ships, whose name is Mystery. They fling the great shadows forwards, making cross and castle dark. They veil the plumed lions on the galleys of St. Mark, and above the ships are palaces of brown black-bearded chiefs, and below the ships are prisons where with multitudinous griefs. Christian captives, sick and sunless, all a laboring race repines, like a race in sunken cities, like a nation in the mines. They are lost like slaves that swat, and the skies of morning hung the stairways of the tallest gods when tyranny was young. They are countless, voiceless, hopeless, as those fallen are fleeing on before the high king's horses in the granite of Babylon. And many a one grows witless in his quiet room in hell, or a yellow face looks inward through the lattice of his cell, and he finds his God forgotten, and he seeks no more a sign. But Don Juan of Austria has burst the battle line. Don Juan's pounding from the slaughter-painted poop, purpling all the ocean like a bloody pirate sloop. Scarlet running over on the silvers and the golds. Breaking of the hatches up and bursting of the holds. Thronging of the thousands up that labor under sea. White for bliss and blind for sun and stunned for liberty. Vivat Hispania, Domino Gloria. Don Juan of Austria has set his people free. Cervantes on his galley, the sword back in his sheath. Don Juan of Austria rides homeward with a wreath. And he sees across a weary land a straggling road in Spain, up which a lean and foolish knight forever rides in vain. And he smiles, but not a Snultan smile, and settles back the blade. The Don Juan of Austria rides home from the crusade. Thus is G.K. Chesterton's poem, Lepanto, published in 1915. Celebrating the battle, which of course is the reason why the Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary appears on this, the 7th day of October. There is so much to this poem. There is so much. Please read it. Please read it. Please read it. Join us in our project. There are many ways you can do that, even without enrolling formally. And then when you enroll formally, Katie, bar the door. You're in for a wild ride of human life on this planet, looked at through a historical and literary lens. But also avail yourself of many, many worthy commentaries on this most worthy poem. With that being said, thank you for your attention, and I will catch you, if I can ever manage the toggles, I will catch you in class, and I'll catch you next week, no doubt, for our next poetry nugget. All right. Valete, adios, in the best Spanish Habsburg tradition.